welcome to my channel. I'm Priyanka and today's vlog is going to be about safety tips for women only road trips on Indian highways. This is basically based on my experience. I have been driving with either my mom or my female friends. We've been doing road trips for I think since 2015. Short ones like Mumbai Pune or Chandigarh Amritsar, and also long ones like Mumbai Delhi or Delhi Jaisalmer. And so basically today's vlog is going to be all about my experiences and the safety tips that I follow. So let's start. Is it safe for women to travel by themselves in India? If you ask me, nothing is 100% safe. Whether you stay at home or you head outside, there are a few things which are more unsafe than others, and women traveling by themselves in India is certainly not one of that. Despite that, it is a rarity to see women only cars outside city limits. I would be lying if I said that when I stop to pay tolls or I stop at highway restaurants, I do not attract undue attention. It's not really in a negative way though, mostly. I would like to think it's more, the reaction is more of a surprise or sometimes even borderline amazement or awe. You know, just seeing two women, two or sometimes even three women on the road. That said, there's no doubt that women need to be extra vigilant while traveling by themselves. And so that is why I created this particular post. It's safety tips that I usually follow when I'm on my women only road trips. So let's begin with the first tip. Be connected. Always let someone know about your whereabouts. What I usually do is I just turn on the live location on WhatsApp. The fact that network connectivity is so good on highways, even like the remotest areas, I have Airtel and I usually get network during my road trip throughout. At least 9% of my journey, I do get network. I think the only place where I kind of faced issues was interiors of Maharashtra, where Airtel connectivity was not strong because I think Jio is prevalent there. But apart from that, most of the road trips that I've done, I've always got network. So do that, switch on your live location is the easiest thing to do. And make sure at least do it for 8 hours because you won't even know when the 1 hour is up. Arrive prior to sunset. Daylight definitely makes me feel safe. That being said, there have been occasions where I have traveled at night past sunset. So on, for example, the Mumbai Pune Express. I would never do that on like a state highway or one of the internal roads, or if it's like an unknown road for me, I would never do. I mean, I would not by choice. I would never do it by choice. I have had to do a particular stretch at past sunset. So it was between Vedaghat to Bhopal when I was traveling with my mom. I had to do that post sunset, but that was a different situation. But it wasn't by choice for sure. And I would never recommend doing that. It was one of my worst stretches that I've ever done. Also, plan your journey in such a way that you do arrive prior to sunset. Dress appropriately. While I believe women should be able to wear whatever they want, this might not work on road trips. The reason being that during a road trip you sometimes cross very conservative villages and towns where showing of skin can be perceived as provocative or also hurt religious sentiments. So it's not that I always cover myself or anything like that. I usually wear loose dresses or I wear maybe knee length shorts or skirts or something, but I try and just avoid tight stuff. So no tank tops, no hot shorts and those kind of things. It also kind of depends on where you are traveling. So if I'm, for example, if I'm doing Mumbai Pune expressway, I would also be okay with shorts. My go-to thing is a loose dress. Usually it's a knee length or just like covering my knees or something like that. That's the kind of stuff that I usually wear. Actually, initially when I started road trips, so the first road trip I did was a Mumbai Delhi road trip. So I was very careful about what I would wear. So I would just wear like track pants. For the first few road trips, I think I have only worn track pants and like loose t-shirts or something like that. But I am somehow not very comfortable in those, and Nowadays, for the last 2 3 times, I think I have done longer road trips. So I did like a Madhya Pradesh road trip, and I also did the Mumbai Delhi road trip. So I've been wearing dresses, and I think it's fine. I mean, I don't think dresses are inviting any undue attention, so it's fine. Save highway emergency numbers. So when you're driving on highways, you would notice these green or blue boards which have specific numbers. Those numbers are specific to particular highways. So I would suggest note down those numbers. So I usually do that. If, for example, I know I'm going to be on NH48, I would just note down the emergency number. And if you are unable to do that, you always have the national numbers that you can, the emergency numbers. So you have 100, which is the police number, and I can vouch for the fact that 100 really works because I have not really on a road trip, but I've had to use it when I was stranded in Goa on a particular island. I've had to use 100, and me and my friend were rescued in a boat and all. But I can vouch for the fact that 100 really works. So save that number, 100. Then you have 102 for ambulance. Save that as well. And 1033 is your national emergency highway helpline number. So save these three numbers. I usually keep them on speed dial if I'm on my highway journeys, but that's the easiest thing to do. Always trust your instincts. If a particular highway stop or a highway restaurant is making you feel uncomfortable, just split. Even if that means letting go of some deposit that you may have paid for your overnight halt, don't risk it. Similarly, if you feel someone is tailgating you or following you, or just take a turn or stop your car. And if you still feel you're not able to throw them off, then just drive into the nearest police station or just call one of those emergency numbers. Never ignore that instinct. Women's intuition is not a myth. I once had such an experience while traveling in Madhya Pradesh with my mom. We were crossing the Morena area, and I wanted to go and explore a particular temple which was off the national highway, so I had to get into an internal road. And somehow the vibes in that area, and also the people that we spoke to for directions to that particular temple, we just got a very negative vibe, or because everyone just told us not to go into that area, especially as we were just two women. We actually debated a lot on that, and finally we just decided to play it safe. Somehow the vibes just had a very negative feel, and both me and my mom had a very strong instinct to not go there. So we just listened to that instinct and played it safe, and we still not explored that particular temple. Pick decent highway restaurants. I'm usually not very picky about highway restaurants. The only thing I try and avoid is places which are frequented by truck drivers. In my experience, there's no dearth of highway restaurants on national highways. The same cannot be said about state highways. So what I usually do is that if I know I'm going to go onto the state highway soon, I try and take my stop just before that on national highway, because on state highways at times you are forced to get into like really sometimes borderline shady kind of highway restaurants. But sometimes you really need to have that break to stop, or the washroom break or something like that, and you are kind of forced to get into the smaller ones. But I suggest just take your stop on the national highway itself. That should be decent. Lock the doors of your vehicle. So always make sure when you are entering or exiting your car to lock the doors. It seems quite obvious, right? It wasn't with me. So there was a particular occasion where my mom and I were traveling from Delhi to Chandigarh, and we stopped at Sukhdev Dhaba for parathas. And probably in my excitement for parathas, or I don't know what it was, but I actually left the car door ajar. I mean, I didn't just leave it unlocked, I actually left it open. And so probably there was a misunderstanding. I thought my mom would be closing it, my mom thought I would be closing it, or something like that. But we, unaware of this fact, we went inside, had a parathas, and when we came back to our car, there were like two security guards guarding it. And once we reached there, we realized that we had left the door open. And not just that, my mom's purse was lying in the back seat with some cash kind of peeping out. And I mean, it was really weird. I really don't know how we could have done that, but supposedly we did. And later we were actually thinking the guards must have thought it's like a setup, because who would actually be leaving door open on a highway. You would actually be leaving a door open and also leaving valuables in plain sight. So we were lucky, you might not be. So make sure you lock your car doors every time. Do not stop or engage with meddlers. So at times you might feel like shouting at the person who overtook you from the left side, or that person who who overtook you, mouthing something about women drivers or something like that. I suggest control your emotions. Just take the high road and drive on. There is no point engaging with these kind of people because choose safety over anything else. Keep valuables safe and out of sight. Firstly, avoid carrying valuables on trips. So, wear minimal jewelry. If you can wear artificial jewelry, that's great. But just keep it as minimal as possible. Even for documents, I mean, I don't usually carry any document with me except my driving license, which doubles up as my identity proof. And Aadhaar is anyways a digital document, so I don't carry any other documents, especially passport. If you don't need it, don't carry it. Avoid opening a purse full of cash or any other valuables in front of any stranger. Basically, when you're stopping at a highway restaurant or petrol pump or anything like that, just avoid doing that. And if you are carrying like a camera or laptop or any other expensive stuff, just keep it in the boot of the car. The idea is to not keep it in plain sight, which would just basically tempt anyone. What I do is in my the purse that I carry to the restaurants or to the hotel or something, I usually keep little cash in that, and most of my cash is actually kept in my overnight bag. Do not stop for hitchhikers. At times, you may be compelled to stop for hitchhikers, especially for stranded women. I don't do that. Safety is always a priority for me. I don't really have too much of an experience with hitchhikers. There was this one incident though when I was really little. I think I was about 10, and it was a family road trip from Delhi to Agra. We were four adults and two kids in like a Maruti 800 in peak summer, because it was a summer holiday. So it was about 40 degrees and we were in a cramped car. And we stopped to ask for directions. So we wanted to go to Mathura. So we stopped to ask a passerby for directions. And he volunteered to take us to Mathura. He said he was going in the same direction. So he kind of fitted in our already cramped car. And we drove for about 45 minutes, and finally he got off saying that his destination had arrived, and Mathura was just like 2 minutes ahead on the same road. But we later realized we were nowhere close to Mathura, and so the passerby had basically just taken a lift and got us 40 to 45 minutes away from our destination now. So my experience was more from inconvenience point of view, but why tempt fate? Make sure your car is roadworthy. Now, I'm no technical expert in cars. I still remember an incident from about 10 years ago where my car was not starting, so it seemed like a battery issue. So I called my dad for help. And being an engineer, he ranted off for a good couple of minutes about how to check the engine of the car, something about spark plugs, and a few other technical terms that I barely understood at that time, and I barely remember now. When he took a pause for breath, I asked him, how do I open the bonnet of this car? I mean, now I do know how to open the bonnet of a car, and I do know some of those technical terms as well. I mean, years of paying for your car servicing obviously teaches you a few things. That is the extent of my technical knowledge. I still don't know how to practically change a car tire. I do know the theory, but since I've never done it myself, I am not confident doing it by myself. I do hope to change it this year, but so all that I do is I just make sure my car is properly serviced if I'm going for a longish road trip, and I also keep the roadside assistance number handy. So I have a Hyundai car, so I keep the Hyundai assistance number handy, and I've had to use it on one occasion. Keep some sort of self-defense product. So I usually keep a pocket knife in my purse. So I used to keep a pepper spray in the dashboard of my car, but I read some articles about how hazardous it can be during summers. So I stopped doing that. Now I only keep a pocket knife in my purse. Thankfully, I've not had to use it till now.
Be alert while picking your highway stops.
So there have been occasions where I've had to stop at the highway. It's basically stops that I've had to take only because I don't want to drive post sunset. So it's just those the stops that I've taken for sleep. So I usually prefer taking it on the highway if I get a decent stop, because that avoids me entering into a particular city. And since the only idea is to sleep, so they work perfectly well for that. The only two things on my checklist for these kind of stops is that the room needs to be clean, and it needs to have a latch that can be bolted from inside. These are the only two things I kind of keep as my checklist. So usually you get these rooms for about 1000 to 1500, and they're quite decent.
Avoid parking or walking in dark areas.
If you need to walk or park your car after sunset, avoid deserted, dark areas. If possible, park your car closer to to the restaurant or the hotel entrance. Now, I don't mean that you should not get out of your room after sunset. Being on a road trip, you already have limited number of hours to enjoy a particular city or explore a particular city. So do go out. That's absolutely fine. You go out for dinner, or go out, try the cuisine of that particular area, but just try and avoid dark, deserted areas, especially because most of these areas you would not really be familiar with.
Keep an eye on the fuel mark.
Always make sure your car has enough fuel, especially if you're traveling in hilly areas or in remote areas, because the frequency of petrol pumps can be low in these particular areas. Start actively scouting for petrol pumps once you reach the quarter mark on your fuel tank. You can use the search petrol pump function on Google Maps, which is accurate on most occasions.
Be alert while driving.
I prefer to break my trip and take a pit stop every 2 hours. There have been multiple occasions where I have felt really sleepy while driving. So this usually happens on expressways or really smooth roads like national highways, which are really smooth. So I do have a tendency to feel a little drowsy. The good part is that when I'm traveling with my mom, it kind of works with her because she loves driving on these smooth roads, while I don't. But there have been multiple occasions that I've had to pull over and probably wash my face with the water, or just like take a nap or something like that, because I felt really sleepy. And this especially happened with me when I was traveling with a friend of mine who didn't know how to drive, but we were doing a Goa to Mumbai trip. We had to do it in one day. So the initial bit was fine because we were going through like these beautiful ghats and state highways, and also it was really pretty and it was really scenic, and I love state highways. I can drive non-stop for like 15 hours, 20 hours also on a state highway, I believe. But as soon as we hit the national highway, so it was the Bangalore Mumbai highway, as soon as we hit it, I started feeling drowsy, and I think we had to take like a stop every half an hour to stretch our legs or wash my face, or grab a cup of chai or coffee or something like that. And a lot of Red Bulls happened on that particular trip. But it was a very, it was not the kind of journey that I enjoyed. And no, driving with a cup of takeaway coffee or a can of Red Bull doesn't give you instant alertness. Actually, if you, I shouldn't even be mentioning this point because this is not really related to women's safety. It's a general etiquette, as to so as to say. I mean, you don't drive if you are feeling sleepy or you've taken alcohol. That's a general rule. Final words. Don't let the lack of a male co-passenger stop you from exploring the inner beauty of India, which I believe is best experienced while on a road trip, especially on the state highways. Also, women co-passengers are much more fun, trust me. So go out, explore the country, just take care of these safety tips. Thank you for watching.